Question, and the session's going to be about new acquisition people and how we evaluate properties, highest and best use, and what is a good target. So young Will here would like to be an acquisition expert, right? And he'd like to take all his information he's learned so far and put it to good use finding properties for us at Summit Capital Partners and go through the process of how we evaluate properties, right? And do we do it different than most people? We do it similar, but we also have different criteria, okay? So anybody that's working in acquisitions here, whether they're doing outbound cold calling, texting, calling, following up on old leads, or taking new leads, also known as warm hot leads, which you have to work your way through the system to be able to get to hot leads, because we're not going to put you on hot leads if you don't know what you're doing. Right, Joseph? Okay, so you got to practice on old stuff. So every single property that comes in, we do a quick evaluation on the property. Now, whether I'm doing it or someone that's been here a long time, we all have a very similar method of going through it, and we probably do it at a quicker level than traditional brokers, right? Because traditional brokers will go to their Whopper and type in an address and hit pump, and then they'll just look at the data that the computer gives them, and that's their baseline for evaluation, right? Okay, which is good, that's fine, that's a broker approach to it. As you get into multifamily property, evaluations are much harder to do because it's based on condition, unit count, rents, all kinds of variables, which means the Whopper can't just give you a number. You got to think about it, right? Which most developers, real estate investors, brokers, well, they will have a analytics team, a research team, a data team who take that information and then try and come up with some valuation. And that's great because that's needed to be done on all properties, but we do it in a very quick way, right? So how long would the average broker take to kind of come up with a value on a property? What do you think?
Hours.
Hours. They'll say, oh, we'll get you something back in 2 weeks, right? Get me all this information and I'll give you a price in 2 weeks. Okay? So every single lead that comes in, we try and filter it and grade it as quickly as possible. So we're going to start with a good one, which is a fourplex in Puyallup. And Will, how did you get this fourplex in Puyallup?
I sent a SMS text blast and he responded yes. And I gave him a call and started talking to him.
Okay, so this one didn't jump in the boat. We had to do something to get him interested, he or she interested in talking to us. And an entire acquisition group is generally designed to put bait in the water, knock on doors, contact people or reach out. And that will generate leads and contacts and projects if you actually do it. Why do most people not succeed here? Chelsea, why do people not succeed here in the acquisition department?
Because they try and do their own method and don't listen to you.
They try and do their own method? Mm-hmm. Okay. Stephanie? You've watched a lot of Dead Soldiers.
They don't listen.
They don't listen? Or they only listen for a short period of time? Or they run the plays, they have good success, and then they coast. Right? Those are some of the reasons that people don't succeed. I don't care whether you want to make $100,000 a year, $1 million a year, or $10 million a year in acquiring property. If you do the action items that we teach, you can hit the numbers. But guys get burnt out, guys don't do it, guys get detracted, they make money and want to quit, all of the above. It's too much work, too many no's. It is a lot of work, okay? So every single property that comes in, we quickly put up a lead sheet, and as I am kind of always been in some capacity, either being in the front or being in the back of trying to be part of it, I'm usually somewhat involved in acquisitions. At times we've had other people lead the division where they know exactly what I would say and they can do it without me. But right now I'm still actively involved in all properties, so we want to hear about every property. I don't care what it is, we create something on it so we can evaluate it. Okay? So someone sends me a lead sheet. I'm just going to go through what I do to evaluate a property. Okay? First, I just go to Google and Google the address, right? Pretty simple. Everybody can do that. And Google's going to give you a list. Can you go to that, Chelsea? Sorry. Going to give you a list of information. First off, if I don't know Puyallup that well, I'm going to look on the aerial. I'm going to look at the picture. I'm going to scroll down quickly. See what Zillow says, what Redfin does. Zillow and Redfin are 99% geared towards single-family properties, so they are not a benchmark for valuation. It's fine because the seller's going to look at it, okay? And if it's currently for rent or was currently for rent, it will not show a valuation on Zillow. It'll just show what's going on with the rent or something, okay? I will sometimes look at, you will find properties that are advertised for rent. That'll give you, many times it'll give you pictures of information of the condition of the property, what they're asking for rent. You can even see if a guy's been trying to rent it for 6 months and he keeps lowering the price, and it's not renting. That would be a good indication that for some reason that property is not renting. You may see a history of sales, whether it's been recently listed. So everything we're trying to evaluate in the property, I do really, really quick, just because I go through it really fast, trying to see if it's something we should pursue. So we're looking to see if it's recently been listed, if he's tried to sell it, okay? If there are pictures on here of the property itself, or I can go look at the condition based on a for rent or a for sale past information. When we have access to Northwest Multiple Listing Service, the broker may run it through the system and see if it has been listed and look at past listings, okay? And we're using that information to evaluate how long the owner has owned the property and what has he been doing with it, okay? So I will go look at Google, I'll jump into Street View, okay? So the nature of this is you can do this at any property in the United States without going to look at it, right? Now, this will not always tell you everything, because we've been fooled by pictures on the internet where it looks great and you actually get there and it's dilapidated and torn down. I will look at the area, I'll look at the property, I'll go up and down the street, okay? Like, let's go down the street. Okay, keep going, and I'm looking at the quality, I'm looking if there's 14,000 cars parked in each driveway, I'm looking for crime, I'm looking for, is somebody fixing something up? Oh, there's a dumpster. Okay, pretty quick here. Oh, I think we're gonna see Joseph's truck. Oh, Joseph's truck is here working on it, and he got red tagged. Joseph.
Not the first time.
You got red tagged. I think that is one of your jobs, right? Okay, so that told me that somebody bought this and fixed it up. Okay, so how did I figure out what's going on in the neighborhood? Simple. Now, this is typically 2-3 years behind, right? These images, they're not always current. So this is what I do. So now I make a mental note in my head, and this is my very highly scientific data collection process. Oh, somebody bought this and renovated it in the last few years, okay? So then I go back, I look at the pictures again, okay? So then at that point, I have a good understanding of where the property is, the location, the neighborhood. I'm looking to see the quality there. Now I need to go to some type of, shall we say, program, service that allows me to understand the property when it was bought. So as a broker, we can go to Realist and we can pull the Realist report. Zillow gives us a little bit of information, but not the information I'm truly looking for. So now we're going to go to PropStream. And on PropStream is great because it will tell us when they bought the property, the zoning, the square footage, the current debt, when they bought it, when they refinanced it. And the great thing about PropStream is it also has a tab. So click on details. Okay. So this is the greatest tool for anybody in acquisitions. Okay? So Will, you jumped into a guy, we won't use his name on video, but we have a seller, a potential seller who owns assets. So the first thing we want to do is, this is like we're learning to play the player and not the cards in poker, is we want to know the profile of the seller. Okay? So anytime an acquisition walks in, Will, if you've talked to somebody for 20 minutes, you should be able to tell me in 30 seconds the profile of that person. Right? So what do I want to know? What do we want to know about sellers?
Do they own other properties?
Do they own other properties? Okay. When did they buy the property? How much debt is on the property? Who manages the property? Why, which they won't tell you, and you have to read through the information and what they say, why would they consider selling right now? Okay? So every person we talk to, you guys, they generally own more than one property. Okay? And if they start selling, which ones do they want to sell? The best ones or the worst ones? They always sell the worst first. Getting the best one out of their portfolio at the end is really hard. We've seen these guys, like, they can't even give up the keys. Okay? Because then they have nothing to do and they have to stay home and get yelled at all day because they have nowhere to go and tinker on. Right? So if we click on linked properties, and this is not perfect because lots of people like us have LLCs, and so the only ordering mechanism that is linking those properties together is generally the mailing address. So if I have 6 different mailing addresses for 100 different LLCs, it's going to kind of link them into jars, so it's not going to tell you the whole thing, okay? At times you will find property managers as the mailing address, and then you look at the total amount of assets they own, and it'll say 187 million. You're like, man, that guy's been crushing it. But really, it's just the mailing address for the property manager, asset manager, who manages all those assets, and he's getting targeted as the one who owns them all. So don't always assume that just because it has a big number. But young Will here jumped into a guy who owns lots of properties in Puyallup. So I would call him the king of Puyallup. Then we go and see 18 years, 15 years, 23 years, and up top it says his value is 7.5 million and he has 7 million in equity. Okay, so right there, Will, is this a good prospect or a bad prospect?
I would say very good.
This is a 10-star prospect. Okay, so whether it's Joseph, Lindsay, myself, Will, Stephanie, anybody doing acquisitions, your next step would be, just based on that information, to get in front of this gentleman. Okay? Right? That would be the next step. We haven't even talked about the property yet. Now we're just talking about the player. Okay? If someone's responding and you see they've owned their properties, most of them approaching 20, 30 years, and he's called you about potentially selling one, you could have the opportunity to buy them all. Okay? So that is different than a one-off seller. That's a portfolio guy. So based on that information, we're going to go back to this property. So can you click on go back up top, just hit property details. Okay? And so he's got it in an LLC. We see he bought it 20-some years ago. So scroll down. Okay? So that transaction date, he's just transferring it from his name into an LLC. So that isn't a sale. Okay, scroll back down. So he bought it in 97, 26 years ago. Okay? And he bought it so long ago it doesn't even have a price. Okay? So then we go back up top. Keep scrolling up. Mortgage and transaction history. Okay? So he had financing of $206,000 in 1997, and since then he's put no more debt on the property. So from our business model of trying to attract apartment owners that own their property outright, this is a 10-star lead. So now we have a 10-star seller with a 10-star lead. At that moment, I continue to evaluate the property. Okay? If he had just bought this 2 years ago and he has $1.6 million in debt on it, at that point, I would say that's probably a retail deal, something we're not interested in, and he's probably going to want to sell at peak full retail market. And so that goes to the acquisition team for a assignment or placement only and becomes a low priority lead. The fact that he still owns 18 others would allow the seller to be a priority, but the asset wouldn't be a 10-star lead. Okay? So now we're going to decide, how do we evaluate the property? Okay? And this is where I don't spend a lot of time, because the broker model is to spend hundreds of hours evaluating the property and coming up with a price before they engage the seller and have anything, any rapport going and anything with that. What we would try and do is, now you got to come up with some valuation of what would it be worth. Okay? So in this scenario, click here, click out the X. Okay. So scroll in. So what I do, okay, and again, I'm not the analytic guy. I don't look at numbers. I do purchase and sales and valuations by feel. Is now I'm going to look at adjacencies. So this is a big apartment building back there. So now I'm going to go to this cul-de-sac. And we've had this experience in lots of cul-de-sacs where, especially in Southtown, builders will go in and build 12 fourplexes. They're all about the same, because the same builder built them all. And what you're going to see here when you scroll in this cul-de-sac, okay? So why are all these dots on the same property? Why does our subject property have 1 dot and all these have 5 dots? What did they do with the fourplex?
Turn them into condos.
Condos. 1 for the parent LLC, 4 for the separate unit. Wow, so somebody's decided on this street that I can take 1 piece of pie and cut it into 4 pieces, and the 4 pieces will be significantly higher value than the 1 piece of pie. Okay, so we know in our mind we could do that. Because now we're going to try and decide what is the highest and best use for this property. I'm doing all of this simultaneously while I'm evaluating a property. Right? Lindsay's laughing. Because people say, how do you do it? I just do it. And so here we're trying to document how do we do it. So we're going to look at highest and best use. Is the highest and best use to tear down that property? First blush, no, probably not. Right? Looks like a quality fourplex. If you wanted to, you could chop it into 4 pieces. So then I would start clicking on all of the individual adjacent properties and seeing when they traded. I'm also looking at the estimated value. And we don't have to do it in detail, but I would go through the whole thing. Okay? And I'm trying to just get a base idea of what is a fourplex going for in Puyallup. And this is actually South Puyallup. What do you call this neighborhood? Duck? You like that one, Chelsea? Yeah. Okay. Do you know the neighborhood in South Puyallup, what they call it?
South Hill?
South Hill, something, South something, yeah. Okay. So we look for values, try and come up with a best guess value. So at that point, I know there are ways in this system, I don't know how to do it. Bought and sold thousands of properties, I have no idea how to use the technology to tell me what the computer is going to tell me that's worth. Other than if we go back to click on number 1. It's giving an estimated value of 1.1. Okay? I have no idea if that's high or low. I believe there, did somebody know how to use this? No? No? Okay. There are methods to have this show you all comparable fourplexes in that zip code. Okay? So the way I would do it is very antiquated. Let's jump back to Zillow. Okay? Go to Zillow, main screen. Okay, so it's giving me some dots. So then I could go in here and I could start seeing, okay, 800K for that nice duplex. So this is a very global perspective on pricing. You can go to any zip code in the United States and you're gonna have to start evaluating what duplexes are worth, fourplexes are worth, 10plexes. And so we will start doing that. Then we could go to click this from for sale, sorry, that's not touchscreen, for sale to sold, okay? And then we might do a filter of, isn't there time filter? Oh, home type or more, I think it's more. Scroll down. Keep going. Sold in, let's just go 6 months. Okay? So then we could look at these dots. And again, this is a very 10,000 square foot way of looking at it. But you're trying to find what duplex, triplex, fourplexes are going for in Puyallup. Right? Okay, so at this moment, do I care what his price is? Will, did he give you a price?
Nope.
Then he wanted you to go first. Right? They always want us to go first, okay? So, an acquisition person at this point, because it has a quality 10 grade property type and a 10-star seller type profile, I would suggest that the acquisition person spend some time trying to come up with a best guess valuation, okay? And how do you do that, Lindsay?
Just try to look at comps.
Right, okay. So single family, duplex, triplex, fourplexes are generally very easy to comp, although prices can vary greatly based on proximity to freeways, streetways, bad streets, good neighborhoods, condition. You could have one fourplex at 600,000, you have fourplex that's 1.2 million, okay? He didn't give you any information on rents, correct, Will?
No.
So your quick question should have been, hey, can you just give me what you think you've been getting for rents the last couple of years per unit so I can guess? Okay? That's an easy question. You're not pinning him down to give you 3 years of financials. You're simply saying, what's it been renting for? Google search will tell you what he's been renting it for because it was in there for rent. Okay? At that point, we're going to go back to the seller, and acquisition people do it differently. Some people will get on the phone and try and have a conversation first before they have a proposal, which is, Joseph would say, hey, I went down, I'm so excited about it. Once I got off the phone with you, I drove down and took a look at it last night. Great neighborhood, great property. I'm pretty excited. I'm guessing you're bringing in, $6,000 a month, 4 units times 1,500. I see on Zillow, one of them's been sitting vacant for a while. Any challenges why it's not renting? And then you'd ask a leading question. You'd ask again, hey, any target number you're trying to get to, right? And then he's going to play ping pong back with you and say, I have no clue, you tell me, right? Don't they always say that, Lindsay? They say, I don't know, you tell me. When you know damn well they have a number in your mind, they just want you to go first, okay? So different guys negotiate differently. We are not trying to lowball or steal his property. We're trying to be first in line to get a fair market value for the property and potentially buy the whole portfolio if he's willing to sell the whole portfolio, right? So different acquisition people use different styles, okay? I will tell you that the more successful people don't treat it as a used car sales. They're not trying to get him to sign the contract today. They're trying to build rapport through multiple contacts, multiple bits of information, multiple conversations, multiple emails, hoping to get to the point that it narrows the funnel down from, yes, we are interested, and we're going to try and narrow this funnel down at some point to get into a range of a potential price. Okay? So, when you're negotiating, Joseph, what's a good way to start a conversation? Mr. Seller, I've done all those things I just said. I'm excited about the property. I've looked. You're putting out feelers. God, I see one just a block away that just sold for $900,000 that looks really similar to yours. I didn't say I was offering 900,000. I said I saw one because you're looking to see his reaction, right? 900,000, Jesus, they must have been giving it away, right? Or that's a piece of shit, I know that one. Or, you know, blah, blah, blah. You're looking for a reaction to get a conversation because you didn't offer 900,000. You just made the conversation that one down the street, or it's available for 900,000. Okay? To see, he could say, that sounds about right. He could say, that's low. He could say, I don't know anything. Okay? But you're trying to do that. Then you're putting in trial balloons of, I see the prices vary greatly for fourplexes in this zip code. I've seen ones as low as 650. I've seen stuff up to 1.1 million. You're talking a range. Again, trying to get him to say something that leads it into that conversation. Now we get a lot of sellers that won't engage at all, right? Just send me something. Generally when they do that, they're not super serious. That will be a tell that they're just going through the motions. Okay? At some point, you're hoping to get some range. During that conversation, you keep steering to all the advantages of owner financing. You're asking him, what if he did sell, what would he do? Right? You ask if he's interested in cash out or owner financing will. All these things you need to learn if you're going to be in acquisitions. Okay?
Or does he plan to 1031?
Is he done? He's going to 1031. Okay? We also then pivot to, we are able to generally get our clients anywhere from clients, sellers, whatever you want to call them, our selling partners, I like to use that word, selling partners, usually 5 to 15% higher in value through participating in seller financing. Okay? So if they're looking for a top dollar offer with no commissions, that is something we really focus on. Doesn't mean we won't do cash out, because you don't want to burn the bridge if he says, all I want is a cash out offer. Okay? Even when they say that, we deliver 2 different offers to them. Right? At some point, and this is where different acquisition people do it differently, okay? A top acquisition person would probably say, if they were putting in the time, and this is how I used to do it, I'd be like, Elmer, what's going on tomorrow? Got time for coffee? Okay, gotta eat 3 meals a day. Let me buy you one of them. Okay, you know how many Grand Slam breakfasts I've bought for old guys? And watch their syrup drip all over their face and, you know, hear their stories for 2 hours, okay? That, you guys are smirking and laughing, but that is how deals get done. Okay? Your probability of success goes up greatly when you're able to meet with them direct. Okay? One-on-one contact, much higher level of success. Phone and email, lesser level. Text only, almost no level of success. Okay? And then we won't even throw in what happens when the broker's in the middle. Okay? So top acquisition people will try to get face time with the seller. Now that's hard if you're doing stuff all across the country, but do it, okay? I have not, and I know people do it, I don't think Zoom meetings are the same, and I don't think it results in the same connection as getting in the car and going and meeting with somebody, okay? If a unit is vacant and the property is local, it's a super easy meeting. Super easy. Hey, is any of the units vacant? Yep, one's vacant. Hey, can I come meet you tomorrow at 10 a.m.? Right? Guys always want to show off their property. Guys are always willing to meet for the most part. Get your foot in the door, meet with them. Okay? You may take offers with you. You may not take offers with you. It depends on how much information. You may take offers with you and not give them to him based on the information he starts saying when you meet with him. Right? Because you wouldn't want to take an offer at 1.1 and you're sitting there and he goes, I'd be looking at something between 900 and a million. Be like, okay, well, I'm not ready. I don't have a proposal for you yet. We recommend taking blank offers. Okay? Some people, and I've had great success this, when I used to go, I used to call it a date. When I'd go to an acquisition meeting or a date with the seller, I would bring the contract I wanted to present, I would bring a contract that was blank. I would bring a copy of a check. And when I sat down with them all, they put the check right out on the table. Why do you do that? Why would I put a check on the table, Savannah?
You're serious.
Tell them you're serious.
Yep. It's like when a guy's trying to sell his used car for the 87th time, right? And some guy shows up and he's carrying around a stack of cash and he just holds it right there. Will at that point, it's like, fine, take the car, $5,000. Just get the fuck out of here. I'm so sick of this car. Okay? So you always come prepared to do a deal if the seller is willing to do a deal. Do we push at that moment, Lindsay?
No.
It comes through experience of knowing whether you can push, whether you should push, whether it's better to wait, whether they're sophisticated in the sense that they do business by email and DocuSign. You will find a lot of our clients, sellers, for the most part, are still very low tech. So they have to meet in person to sign documents. Trying to send them something by DocuSign may result in confusion. So you still have to be willing to do that old school method. Okay? So in a perfect world, Will, you would try and get more FaceTime with this guy. I would probably have another conversation with him to see if it's worth driving all the way down there, because my job in teaching you priorities is how to value your time. I mean, it's a 4-hour round trip to go down there, right? At least. That's a good half day to go down there and have a 20-minute meeting, okay? Because it's right by your house, right? Yeah, pretty close. Where you guys see Bigfoot and all that stuff out there. Yeah. You get cotton candy at the fair.
Yeah.
Pew out up fair. Okay, so on this one, that is your best lead, Will. So let's quickly jump to what is a bad lead or what we would do. So let's go to that other one where he had 2 properties. Let's go to 2711. Okay. So your leads come in, Will, and this is what you need to learn if you're going to be a good acquisition person. You can't be offended when somebody says it's a bad lead. Okay? Doesn't mean you may not try on it, but you got to go to the perspective of, is it a good lead, bad lead? Again, we're going to be looking at the property real quick, highest and best use. Okay? So, home rented for rent income restricted. Anybody know what that means?
Low income.
Low income subsidized housing. Okay. And they got a good deal on some really ugly paint. And I look and see at how many meters it has. I scroll back, I look at the neighborhood, I go through all the things we just went through on the last example. Okay? What I always do with every property, because we're looking for highest and best uses, we're looking for zoning, lot square footage and zoning to see if additional units could be built, whether it should be torn down and build townhouses. You'd go scan back to go to the map, go to the aerial. Okay, we're looking at adjacent values, we're looking about everything about it. I don't even know where it went, so.
My mouse is being weird, sorry.
Okay. This is right by Chelsea's house, so she knows it very well. Everything south of Madison is near your house, Chelsea, so just, okay?
No, I ran off.
Okay, so what I would do with that is I'd go to Realist. If we had a Realist report, I'd check it out. I'd see when he bought it, okay? And from a perspective of, it's just a house, and I'm not being mean, it's just a house or a duplex in South Seattle. It doesn't have any high density zoning, meaning it's a single family zone. It's kind of just like a retail deal. Somebody's going to trade it. They're trying to rent it for subsidized housing, which is probably not a very lucrative or exciting thing for a real estate investor to buy at $1 million, because he's probably going to want $1 million for it. I didn't see what the Zillow value was, but.
I don't think it had one.
Oh, it didn't have one because it's for rent, so it overrides the value. Okay. And so that wouldn't be a very exciting lead for something that we would be interested in. Does it fit into assignments? In traditional business, maybe, but it depends on the price, okay? He also said he had another property for sale, 1900. Or that he would sell. I guess you said will, okay? So when I looked at his properties, he only had 3 or 4, and he had one kind of near the Chinatown neighborhood. Okay, so go to the aerial on this one. Let's just go to Google then. Just go to Google.
Like right there, to the ones.
We need somebody that knows what they're doing to drive the bus here. And you're supposed to be the highest technology person here, so that shows how good we are here. Just go to the aerial. Go to the aerial map, please. Just click on the map, and then it'll switch to aerial if you want it. Isn't there an icon to switch to? Okay, so then, that's fine. So scroll in. Okay, so going through Google Earth is a great way for acquisition people who are bird dogging and looking for property, because it's really like this fun game, and you can do it in other programs like, what's the one we were just on? PropStream. It's literally like the game of concentration where you're turning over the cards and looking what's going on them. It's fun to go surf because, okay, so this is a high density area right now. You can see big buildings. The zoning is designed for 50 feet, so we looked at that. And this has 2 adjacent properties that have not been developed yet. I can tell by the roofs that lots of townhomes have been developed in this neighborhood and sold. I can see construction going on. That's a very active neighborhood, okay? The challenge is, I think that you said this guy wanted 2-point-some million for this little parcel.
Yeah, 2.5.
2.5, okay, for this little 4,000 square foot parcel, okay? Because you can build 50 micros there, right? Okay, so is anybody buying land development deals right now? Yeah, where we're at in the cycle in the world? Okay?
Not very many, not in Seattle.
Not very many. Nobody's building. So what's that going to do to supply and demand? Supply is going to continue to go down. Okay? Which will in some way help the market from going lower, because supply and demand will still remain balanced because nobody's doing it, okay? So then I went to PropStream, I looked at the data, and it showed he just sold some of his property to the city of Seattle because the city decided they wanted to widen Holgate. So they bought 5 feet of his property. So they just made his 4,000 square foot parcel smaller, okay? So from a lead perspective, and I'm gonna make you participate, Will. He wants 2.5 million for a very small piece of development parcel in a high-density neighborhood, probably wants cash out. Who would buy that? If you got it in contract, who would buy it, Will?
I'm guessing a developer who just knocked it down.
Okay, so is anybody buying development parcels right now that you could not deliver for 5 years?
I don't think so.
Probably not, okay? So in the world of development, and this is real estate, just ask my wife, our life goes like that, okay? It's a fun ride at Disneyland, okay? And these cycles, you know, unfortunately, these cycles tend to be about every 10 years, okay? You with me there? So you can be top of the mountain at one point, you can be at the bottom of the mountain, and you can have everything in between in the cycles. In the part of cycles, there will be expansion, peak, and then contraction. And then it goes again. And you can chart this for the last 100 years. Okay? And the cycles vary, but when we're on this, where do you think we are right now? We just peaked and we're coming down the mountain, right? So nobody knows how deep this will be, but certainly nobody's buying at top market value, land banking deals that they potentially couldn't deliver a widget for 5 years. I'd say nobody, but very few people would be, okay? So, in that scenario, Will, the only way someone would probably do it is if he did a closing on permit deal or he did favorable owner financing with very little down. Okay? Because you've probably got to land bank it, you got to sit on it 3 to 5 years, and you got to feed the debt. And at 2.3 or 2.5 million, that's a lot of debt. That's at least 10, 15,000 a month. Carrying costs, it's not a very sexy, exciting project. Okay? So what do you do with them, Will? You just give up?
I don't know.
What would you do with that prospect?
Maybe try and, just keep in contact with them, maybe not push it for now, but keep dialogue and
Yeah.
try and either work them down over time in price or get those favorable terms. It's a long way.
The important thing we're trying to get to, Will, is, okay, and this is no different than watching the movie Rounders when you sit down at the poker table. Your first job sitting at the table with any seller is evaluating the seller and trying to determine how you can help them, what his goals are, and what type of player he or she is, okay? So when I'm talking to people, I don't even talk about the property for the first 10 or 15 minutes. You know, they'll want to get to just the property, but I keep bringing it back to, oh, what did you do for a living? Oh, how did you buy this? How many properties do you own? Why would you sell? You're trying to figure out all the Dr. Phil stuff that they won't tell you so that you can understand whether this is a highly sophisticated real estate investor or an occasional, just by happenstance, owns a couple properties. And there's everything in between. If you call the guy and he says, I own 57 properties, I buy and sell 10 or 20 a year, I'm doing full retail, I don't need to sell it, 2.5 cash out, close in 30 days, that's not a very qualified prospect. Not for us, okay? Now the brokers may have fun doing it, so Skip and Connor can get over there and get the listing, and they can get it locked up for a year, and they can find that one guy that wants this property because he went and got these 2 properties first, and then he went and got theirs, and that works, but that's not our model, okay? So the number one thing you need to learn first in real estate acquisitions is get to know the seller before you talk about the property, right? Okay. So we had your property you got on 145th.
Yes.
You have that flyer sheet or something? Savannah sent it yesterday.
It's in the drive. The one that you just updated, right? Yeah, it does.
Okay, so let's just quickly go through this because I want Joseph and Will and everybody to learn what Lindsay does in the process. So the phone rings, someone calls me, they said, I'm going to be selling this property, I represent my father, he was a broker, right, or is a broker?
Yeah, no relation, but it's a broker.
Just same last name? Okay. Okay, so Mr. Smith is representing Mr. Smith, and you did what? You had a 5-minute conversation with him?
Yeah, he said they had an old offer from you, probably gonna list it, we can't come to an agreement off market. So, great. Had a conversation with the broker a little bit longer, set up a time to see the property.
And so then you went and met with him? And did you meet the seller and the broker?
Yep.
Okay, and the seller lives there?
Correct.
And where's he moving?
Out of state.
Okay. Okay. And there is essentially a second unit, but nobody's renting it.
Correct.
Okay. So then we quickly looked at the land use, the zoning. It's just out of the shoreline expansion area for sound transit, higher density. It's on a busy street. I coincidentally lived on 145th when I was a kid right there. So I know the area well. Okay. And highest and best use is, that's what we try and figure out. Okay? So is there more way to add more units? No. Does zoning support tearing it down and building a bunch of townhomes for sale? No. It's on a busy street. Ooh, How much do we deduct for a busy street? How much does value come down for a busy street? So 10% at least for owner occupant. Chelsea's gonna get off a busy street because she doesn't want her child running around in the street and riding his tricycle out on the Martin Luther King Way, playing chicken, right? Waiting for the little yellow buses to come by and pick him up, okay? And I'm being funny because value is determined by location and neighborhood, okay? Joseph, when he's 22, probably wouldn't care if him and 5 buddies rented this house. When he's 32 with 2 young children trying to back out into a busy street, safety comes into mind, doesn't want to let the kids out in the front yard, can't relax on his lazy boy because kids are outside and he doesn't want them running out into 40-mile-an-hour traffic. It affects value of a property. Okay, all that comes into mind. So when we're thinking about it, we're trying to determine, is this something we want? No. So then it goes into our assignment and placement model. Is this something we can help somebody else get into? So then we have to think, who would be the buyer? Is it marketable to a buyer? And so Lindsay would do an analysis of what are the valuations of similar properties in the area. And the only way you are able to place properties and charge a fee is if it is undervalued or below the competitive property, have favorable terms, or has something that the next person can do to it to add value. Otherwise, nobody's going to write you a check for delivering the opportunity to buy this property. So I think we determined that it's most likely an owner-occupant or a first-time duplex buyer who would put 2 tenants in it, right?
Yeah, because it is dated, but it's clean. So if it was a first-time investment buyer, they could put tenants in there immediately.
Right.
Really wouldn't have to do anything to that.
Okay. So then once we get it in contract and we've gone through the check marks that it's probably not for us, then it goes into our retail showroom and we can place it out there for other people to potentially buy it. Okay? Now, Lindsay at that point knows how to do placements, and so she will continue to work it forward, and at that point it may entitle inspections, interest, renegotiation, hopefully trying to get it to a successful closing. Okay? When you're in this part of the cycle, going down, there are fewer and fewer potential buyers for every asset. Okay? So this business, or any business in real estate, needs to pivot to what is still very marketable and what's still very marketable. What do people still want right now in this cycle? Multifamily. Because when people are not buying, they're staying put, they're renting, they're deferring purchases of homes, they're waiting to see how far it goes. Okay? Are you going to go out right now and buy a house at 1.3 if you think in 6 months it might be 1.2 or 1.1? You're going to wait. So you'll stay in your apartment, even if you have the baby. You'll just gut it out, right?
It's coming out no matter what.
I know.
Ain't no answers.
Right, Lindsay? But you defer that bigger purchase. Lindsay'd love 8,000 square foot backyard. But you got to wait and see what happens. So, now, if this bottoms out and starts coming back up shorter, then the whole cycle starts over again. Okay? Questions, Will? Did we answer your first attempt at acquisition questions?
I think so.
Okay. The thing we got to teach, and this is where some guys, gals have success, is the entire business is based on being able to connect with the seller and push him, he or she, to the point that some type of business transaction happens through comfortability, right? And some people can do it on the phone in 10 minutes, and some people have to take 20 in-person meetings, but at the end of the day, you either see if there's a deal there or not. But first off, you've got to grade the property and the seller's portfolio to see if it's something worth spending a lot of time on. Okay? If they're not so you might go back, Will, or Joseph would, you might go back to the gentleman that owned Lane Street and have a conversation. Because if he owns properties, he may still be a buyer, or he potentially could be a partner in what we do. At that moment, you're expressing to him what we do in real estate and how we could add value to him by jumping into doing what we do too. Okay? Which a lot of our partners over the years have been past sellers or past people we've contacted about potentially selling their property. Because they're already in the business. They already speak the language. Joseph, questions? No?
Covered it all.
Okay. Good. Lindsay, anything to add?
Covered it.
You guys all get different when the cameras are on. We're not doing this, we're just trying to document it so that as new...
Yeah,
as new-
actually, I do have a question.
Yeah, as new people come in, we don't have to keep reiterating over and over again. We can provide these teaching tools to show them, and then they can ask additional questions once they review it.
When you're evaluating a development deal, how common is the close on permit versus not?
Well, and we left out, let's cover two questions, okay? So we skipped one thing that I wanted to get to, okay? And then we'll do a development question. So, you were surfing, Will, and you went, which is a great strategy, and I've heard lots of people say this, they want to start looking for apartment buildings for sale in Seattle, so where do they go?
Okay.
LoopNet. Okay? Yep. Go to LoopNet. Right? Which LoopNet is your traditional broker, commercial broker postings of currently listed properties. Are we still running well?
Yeah.
We're good? Okay. So you went to Google search and you just said, I want to buy apartments in Seattle, and boop, 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 boop. All of the current listings are up there, which are generally through the commercial broker houses in Seattle. 90-some% are through commercial brokerages and not residential brokerages. Why is that? Why is Betty with Windermere not running around trying to find 25-unit apartment buildings to sell?
She doesn't know it.
That's not her niche. Her niche is her niche. Full luxury residential service, full polished apples. This is my playbook. You're going to do all this with your house. You're going to get all your shit out. You're going to come over and spend $100 grand to fix it up. Then you're going to get all your shit out, and you're going to get out, and I'm going to go over there with cookies, and I'm going to promote it and sell the house full retail, which is great. That is her frequency. That is what she does. Now, her friend has a 20 unit. She doesn't know 20 units. So they're going to get a commercial broker that knows how to best represent 20 units, yeah? Which is what they do, and that's their thing. So, Will, when you start calling those guys, and for some reason it takes 3 to 6 guys to sell any apartment building for some reason, I don't know why, but that is their program and their frequency, that Skippy works for Connor, and Connor works for Cole, and Cole works for Spencer, and they have a nice train from 22 to 42, and everybody works on the team, and that's how they sell the property. If you go to them, Will, with anything outside of the box of 30-day all-cash closing, good luck, right? Because they have their play and their frequency of how they're going to filter offers for the seller, and you're not going to be able to talk to the seller directly, right? Because their job is, no, we got to do our job, which is take what you're telling me, you tell your broker will tell me, and then I'll go talk to the seller. And then the seller will tell me, I'll tell your broker, and then they'll talk back to you. But we don't want these people talking. Because that's what we get paid 6% for. Okay? So, Will, you need to be talking to principals directly. That's our primary focus. We have talked about creating a program trying to connect more with brokers to bring us our deals, and that's something we want you to develop, which is brokers do have deals, and that's fine. We're happy to work with them. The challenge will be that they're running their playbook of what they feel a deal should be structured, which 90-some% of them are simply straight cash out. Okay? So Joseph, you wanted to ask about development, right? So your question is, this guy owns a piece of land, right? And he says he wants $1 million for it tomorrow. Okay? So the question is, what are you going to build on? It affects the conversation. Is this one house? Is this 6 houses? Or is this 50 micro apartments?
15 units.
50, you came up with a fourth variable.
Yep.
15 units of what?
15 unit apartment building.
For keepers. You're gonna
Yep.
keep it.
Yep.
Okay, great. 15 unit, multifamily, keep for kids. Okay, that means forever. That is your goal. You gotta have a goal of what you're gonna do with it. Okay, now you're gonna go try and find it. Okay? So my question to you, Joseph, the developer, is, do you have a lot of money?
Why not?
Huh?
Probably not.
Okay, so you don't have a bucket of money, you're just trying to park.
Right.
So you want a shoestring developer, okay? So, first thing you gotta do is go find a targeted piece of property. So you found one. Is it listed or not listed?
It's not listed.
Makes a difference. So was he saying he'd sell it, or you reached out to him to see if he would sell?
We reached out to
We knocked on the door. Right? Right? And let's just go with Bob, since that's an easy name. Bob, the owner, says, yeah, young Joseph, I will sell you the property. Show up with $1 million tomorrow and it's all yours. Okay? So does it have any streams going through it? No streams? Has it got any ponds?
No ponds.
No ponds? Okay, does it have any bald eagles?
Possibly.
Okay, possibly. That's a maybe on the bald eagles. Okay. Does it have any spotted toads? Because if there's a pond, there's got to be spotted toads. We had this property up north on 120th. Everybody in the city's been trying to get it, but it's got spotted toads on it. Some endangered toads. Can't touch it. Okay? All right. And being funny because this is what happens with the dirt. Okay? Is it in the middle of nowhere, or is everybody built around it? You got to evaluate all those things. Okay? So then you come to it and you go, you think, how long would it take me to get a permit? Because without a permit, you don't have anything.
Yeah.
Okay? You need land or an option to buy land, and you need a permit to get the number one thing that drives any development, which is the money. Right? Okay. So you're going to go to the seller, you're going to explain it's going to take me 24 months to get a permit, and then at some point I will show up with money to pay you off. Okay? So, yes, okay, fine. You want $1 million, I'll give you $1 million. Here's how I can do it. Okay? I give you $20,000 today, and you give me a closing on permit contract, or I can give you 20 today, and I'll give you 20 every 6 months, and you close tomorrow on a deed of trust contract, and you get monthly income from that. That is what we teach for land development. Okay? So you're trying to minimize how much you're coming out of pocket with right now, providing a win-win for him. Okay? The challenge with doing that is, if he's going to 1031, he can't, right? And he's not getting a lot of cash in the sale day one. You will find that land development parcels, you generally have very more favorable sellers. Okay? Because we started this conversation with how many people are running around right now with $1 million that they will just put on the table to buy a land bank deal so that they potentially could build something finished in 4 years. Very few.
Yeah. Huge developers, right? That's about it.
Okay, but no, right, but even huge developers, for the most part, no, I disagree with you. Huge developers typically almost never take title to a property until it's entitled.
Especially the big guys.
The big guys, unequivocally. You want to go short plat and try and make 68 lots for a big guy? He ain't going to give you very little money until he has title.
Gotcha.
Until he has permit. Okay? So it's actually the stupid-headed guys like us that will actually show up with some amount of money and give it to him on day one. We're generally getting favorable terms. So there's almost no one that can buy that property. So when there's almost no one that'll buy something, do you think the seller becomes nicer? A lot of times, right?
Again, depending on the motivation. So yeah.
But most of these guys are not motivated. Right. There's a price for today. There's a price for these terms, and there's a cash price today. What do you think the cash price for his expectations of $1 million is today? Where we are in the cycle. If he really wanted to liquidate that property for cash, how much do you think he could get in the market?
650, 700?
Okay, 300.
300. 300. See the difference? So when you started talking to him, Joseph, you're trying to find out. They will tell you. Lindsay will tell you through experience of talking to literally 1,000, I don't know how many people she's talked to. Lindsay's probably talked to several thousand owners in the last 7 years, at least. Probably. I mean, our lead pipeline generally is around 500 leads per year, right? And in contract about 100 properties a year, 150 to 200. We're talking to several thousand people a year. Most of these people will tell you the history of the property. Yeah, Chelsea showed up and offered me 1.2 last year. Oh, did you call her? Yeah, she said she wasn't interested anymore. Okay. I had an offer of this, or the neighbor says he'll give me this, or I'm thinking of doing that. All these guys will talk. They're generally not very motivated. They don't have to do anything. Okay? So in the world of land development, you can generally get pretty favorable terms. Okay? Now, if it was to build a simply, let's do a different thing. Let's switch it up. Okay? There are no lots in Laurelhurst, but let's just say there was one. Okay? And someone said they wanted $1 million. There's likely a high net worth or local builder that would take the risk to buy that and show up with $1 million cash, because they would be fairly confident that within a short period of time, to 6 to 12 months, they could get a permit and build a $4 million house. Okay? So in that instance, this seller might be a little more retail. He might know that if he holds it up, he would probably get some suitors. Super high density neighborhood, great views, close to the water, average price, $2 to $4 million in the neighborhood. He can be a little more traditional in his sales. And in that instance, he might hire a retail broker, residential broker who works that neighborhood. And I will tell you that every broker that works in that neighborhood probably has 2 or 3 pocket clients that would be interested in buying land. Home builders, custom home builders, spec home builders. Okay. So this gets exciting because more variables come about. Okay, we've gone long. So good. Thank you, everybody.